this podcast, we're talking to Rabbi Debbie Young-Summers, an educator and a member of a rabbinic team in a Reform synagogue in North London. She regularly makes contributions to broadcasts and to debates.
There's a midrash, which is a Jewish storytelling tradition that expounds on our texts. The midrash tells us that when the sort of 600,000 Hebrew slaves and mixed multitude that came out of Egypt with them were stood at the bottom of Mount Sinai, as Moses is having that conversation with God, each one of them saw God as they were able to. So God appeared to each one of those 600,000 people differently. And in a way that means you have to hear 600,000 tellings of that incident to know what it really was like. Everyone has a different angle, everyone is seeing things through their own lenses. And I've always really valued that approach religiously, that none of us really know the truth. We all can learn from each other's experience of the greater truth. And I suppose I've worked so hard to ingrain that in my faith life that it becomes a real struggle when you start to see ideas of multiple truths, which I really value religiously, being applied to things that really should be facts. And how do we identify what is a fact that is truth? To some extent, there does need to be a limit to how open we are with what is fact and what is not.
And do you think the way that we approach facts and truth is changing, is different from how it was in previous generations?
I think it is different for some. I also think that the way we approach fact and truth has changed for different people in different ways. I think the internet inevitably has massively changed the way that we feel our voices can be heard, the importance of our voices. I remember about 15 or 20 years ago when blogging was beginning to be a thing, and you suddenly realize that anyone can contribute to the conversation, and that's an amazing piece in the world of information and allowing people a voice. But that also means that people can spread false truths and can claim truth just through their own experience. And someone's personal experience should be respected and heard, but that doesn't mean it's fact. It means it's a person's experience. And I think we seem to have reached a point in both the media and partly in religious life and in social media, where we're all trying to shout as loud as possible to be heard above the cacophony. And that's not about truth, that's about being heard. And I think we need to approach the voices we're hearing with a greater degree of awareness of that.
So as a rabbi, I mean, how are you responding? Because clearly you would like to get your voice and your kind of religious perspective heard, and some of these kind of unhelpful voices kind of perhaps slightly the volume turned down a bit. So how would you respond?
Actually, to struggle with truth, to struggle with the greater knowledge is part of what it means to be Jewish. The problem comes when, and I'm often very fearful of folk who say, this is what it says, I know the truth, because that's never how Judaism has worked. Judaism has always been a discussion, a debate. Let's look at how it's done over there and how it's done over there. Even though that's not a majority way, we're going to make sure it's recorded because someone might want to use it in the future. It's never been a monolithic space of ultimate truths in a way. And increasingly, though, we see people saying, this is what it is, this is the truth. And it becomes very difficult, in a sense, to allow multi-vocality when you're being told that your voice is not a contributor. And at the same time, multi-vocality can't be used to just spread lies. But I do think there's a difference between how we express multi-vocality religiously and do create space to hold everybody. In fact, one of my colleagues once said that creating community is about learning how to be in company with people that you really don't agree with. And I think that is part of the Jewish tradition, really, is to explore how we hold all that debate. On the other hand, debate and different opinions shouldn't mean falsehoods.
I love that idea kind of on multi-vocality. Do you think that would be a principle that we could adopt kind of outside the Jewish faith? Is that something you'd like to see more people embracing?
Definitely. And I actually think if we could embrace a almost a Talmudic model of conversation, which is you can sometimes get into heated arguments, you can defend your view vociferously, but you still give space to the other view. You still allow the presence of debate and difference. Even though you might feel really convinced of your own view, you still hear and record the other. If we could do that on Twitter, for example, what a difference the debate would have. For me, there's a real problem and a red line almost of, if your debate with me is going to deny the humanity of someone else, I'm not sure that's an okay truth.
There are 5 basic questions about truth in these podcasts. We're asking them of a wide variety of people to keep the conversation going.